Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Tuesday, November 29th. I am Kemlin Tan Bappy. This is my lovely co host, Lucian Tan. Welcome to Between the Lines with today's special show artist, Dr. Janet Hart Heinicke. Woo! All right, and our special theme for today is Treasure Our World. And today we are going to have an interview conversation with Dr. Heinicke. I am very proud to say that I met Dr. Heinicke some time ago in Des Moines, Iowa. She was actually the judge of a show that I entered, one of my first shows at the Des Moines Women's Art
Mhm.
Show, and I actually won a prize. And so I went to hear what comments my juror decide, why did she pick my work? And I was blown away by how sensitive and reflective this woman was. And I kind of fangirled her and was like, oh my gosh, she's so amazing. She's amazing. And we've met in so many other areas, working in the Heritage Gallery and other art shows. And one day I said, I can't believe I'm talking to you again and you're talking to me. And she said, stop putting me on a pedestal. I just want to be your friend. And so it is with great honor that I can tell you that this woman had, when I knew her, was the head of the art department in Simpson College. She's also the one who taught me my love, my medium of my heart, which is paper batik. And I can remember still that day when I went to a workshop at Jensen Elementary School in Urbandale, and Dr. Heinicke was teaching elementary school students to dye paper. And so many bad jokes came out of that workshop, but we won't talk about those right now. But I remembered what it felt like for time and space to stop. And I was supposed to be a parent helper, but that day I was lost as a child in an art studio. So, without further ado, I introduce you to Dr. Heinicke, but I'm going to ask Lucian to explain why we're changing format today.
This is our first re-recording. We normally do our events live, but Dr. Heinicke was unable to join us earlier today. And after hearing the recordings captured circa 1999, I was just blown away. Dr. Heinicke, your presence, your recorded voice has the same quality as exceptional radio hosts did back in the past. It was gripping. And when I realized how animated you could be just with your voice, and we had an opportunity to get you live right now, I could not pass it up. So it is with that simplistic and selfish takeaway that we invited you to this live experience.
Thank you. My pleasure.
So, without further ado, I'm going to share screen. Okay. Let's see. I got to share sound. Oops. Excuse me, Lucian. All right, here we go. So, this is from the Iowa Women's Artists Project Oral History series. And we have Dr. Janet Hart Heinicke as one of the featured artists in this project. These recordings were created in an interview in March 9th, 1999. So the first segment is about drawing. So let's listen together.
I was a little girl. I did a lot of drawing. I was encouraged to do that. A lot of painting. I was encouraged to do that. I was very fortunate to go to a high school that had 4 galleries in it. There was a Richmond Art Association which had a permanent collection housed in galleries which were built in the high school fine arts building. So there was a fine arts building with a theater and ensemble practice rooms for orchestra and band, and then there was an art room. During the summers and school holidays, I went with my mother when she did her visits. When she had to make a call for a client, I sat in the car and waited. I drew on the liners of Belle Charmier stocking boxes. The stockings used to come with a very nice cardboard box, and there were liners between the 3 pairs of hosiery. Mother'd give me those liners, and then I'd draw on them.
On the back seat of the car.
Dr. Heinicke, tell us about those liners.
In the back seat of the car, you'll be drawing. That's amazing.
Oh, one thing we've left out. My mother, well, because I'm an old lady now, my mother was a social worker. She worked for the Wayne County Department of Public Welfare long before there was anything called welfare. It eventually became called Aid for Dependent Children. But way back in those days, there weren't babysitters, and if there had been, mother probably wouldn't have used them. So I went with her when she made what we called then a home visit. So if you, let us say, Kim, needed to have financial assistance, once a week you had to go to the county courthouse and tell the man in charge of the welfare program that you didn't have enough to eat. You couldn't feed your family. And so you knocked on the door of the man in charge of those public welfare funds. And actually, in reality, would say, I can't feed my family. And the head man then would look at the circumstances and say, well, here's a piece of paper. You take it down to the store and you can have some groceries. They called those chits then. I don't know why. They were little pieces of paper that allowed that person to have enough food for the family for a week. Does that sound like anything we know about in the world of welfare? There was a certain link of responsibility between the donor and the recipient. Long gone in the system today, which I can't imagine anybody tolerating it either as the recipient or as the donor. But in those days, that's the way it was. And because I was a little girl and there wasn't babysitting, and because I didn't have any brothers and sisters, and there wasn't anybody at home to help me, I accompanied mother on those visits. And so I saw firsthand what we're talking about. I think I can tell you a little story that illustrates better than what I'm trying to say. I will remember until I'm dead an incident in a hot summer day. Hot, Indiana hot, just hot, sticky. And in the middle of the afternoon, a little boy came to our front porch. Back in those olden days, you didn't have screened-in porches. This was a porch, and it was made of concrete and hot and sticky too. About 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, a child came to our front door. Miss Hart, Miss Hart. My mom, what you want? I'm hungry. Oh, she didn't say to him, why? Where'd your food go? Where's your mom and dad? I'll remember it till I'm dead, what she said. You're all hot and sweaty. Come on in. Let's go back in the kitchen and we'll get a drink of water. Put some ice in it. Come on. And we went to the back of the room and got the ice water. Not a word was said that he had run away from his foster home. Not a word. You're hot. Let's have some cold water. And of course, the inevitable happened. The little boy, once he had his cold water, said, well, he ran away. They didn't like him there. And the story unfolded itself. Why he had run away from a foster home where they didn't care for him. I've always treasured that because I've always felt that was such a wise response. Come on in. You're hot and sweaty. Let's have a drink. Not, why did you dumb, ungrateful kid run away? Not a word about that. The story came out. The solutions were felt. How wise. I can't think of anything to tell you more about who I am than that. I learned to be responsive to need. My mother took me because there weren't any babysitters. Probably if there had been, we wouldn't have had money to pay for them. So as we drove around, me in the back seat of the car, she'd say, Janet Louise, did you see that cloud up there? Oh, isn't it beautiful? Look how blue it is. Look at those little funny bumps in it. Now, what did that do? It taught me to look, to see the world that I live in with color, with shape, with infinite variety. It's the same world that we live in today with the same infinite variety. We just have eyes to see it.
I had extensive musical training as a child and nearly became a music teacher. I had an organ teacher who approached her lesson giving from the standpoint of expressiveness rather than the standpoint of accuracy or consistency with the composer's work. And that teacher gave me a very precious gift, that of loving to use that instrument as a tool for self-expression. It was a different way for me to look at art or music. I was thinking about music as a career and thinking about art as a career. And my mother said to me, what do you like to do best? Choose the thing you really like to do. Well, it's as simple as I just like to make things. I like making things. Well, as soon as I could identify that, then the rest of the choices became clear.
It is as simple as that. I like to make things. Are you still making things?
Mm-hmm. Sometimes they're smaller. I was making 6-foot things, but that's kind of awkward.
Why do you make things, Dr. Jan?
I have 2 answers. It's pleasure. That's a sort of simple answer. I guess I'd have to, do you know the word Weltanschauung? Do you know that word? It means your worldview. So if you have a Weltanschauung, that's how you see the world. All of you have one, and part of what's happening in our contemporary society is that we sometimes borrow other people's Weltanschauungs because it's easy or it's cheaper or everybody else does it. But it means how we see the world. And what I've just described as a personal experience accounts for how I see the world. A mother that said to me, look at those blue clouds over there, of course, was teaching me to see how blue they were, to become sensitive to colors and lines and shapes, to be sensitive to the beauty of that world. Maybe I'm saying little, as I probably should. I think there was a world war when I was growing up, and we made and sang patriotic songs, and yeah, our on the edge of our desks as we were growing up. I don't see a comparison between the way we view the world today and that much more simple view of looking at the world today. And if I'm truthful, it's a more frightening view because it's a bigger view, a more global view with more infinitely smaller parts of that view. So those of us who are fortunate enough to live in this time have both a bigger view, but a more troubled view because there are more parts of it. And this is way too simple to say, but so far we have not seen linkages between those parts of the contemporary world. We're still busy saying, I got it right. You haven't.
You mean I'm not right?
No, we don't. We really don't have a global view. And the 3 years of systemic separation has made it more difficult for us to be together. But that's a more political statement. And you asked me to talk about art, so I'll try to behave.
Well, I think art is our voice as artists, is our sensitivity to our world around us. That's why I make art, why I write.
You know what I say to students, you've heard me say it. Art is the oldest language human beings have spoken. The very oldest. We drew on the walls of caves millennial ago because that same impulse to tell, to say, did you see that? That impulse is universal, global, not age specific, not color specific, not language specific. It's a universal language. So there too.
And on to our next clip. Family.
I'm absolutely convinced that having a family of more than one made me a much more flexible person. I think had I not married or had children, I would have been a very rigid kind of human being because I do organize things well. And I like to have things in sort of orderly sequence of events. So I am sure I have become a more flexible, more empathetic person with other human beings than I ever would have been without children. Now, possibly that makes me more willing to be flexible in the way I approach my work. I don't feel any qualms about moving from one media to another or from one content area to another. That is okay as far as I'm concerned. And I don't feel like I'm being untrue to myself when I do that.
Lucian, I see a comment in your eyes.
It's confirmation to my response that I'll share in a bit.
Okay, he's pleading the fifth right now. Dr. Jan, what does flexibility and fluidity between disciplines mean to you?
It means I break a lot of rules. And it means that I don't think success is measured by whether or not I can only be excellence in watercolor. because I fundamentally believe that I'm speaking a language to others to read with their eyes, because that language is universal and not age specific or color specific. I think that that gives me an opportunity to go from watercolor to whatever. I'm hiding under that excuse.
Yes. And hence you've been invited to this show for this reason, because we blur the lines between disciplines, because it isn't the art form, but the message that is most paramount to me. Do we have something to say?
I think parallel to language is important. I know you've heard me say more times than I should. The oldest language human beings spoke was the language of art, the language of marks that describe to you what I see. It's a way of communicating with one another. And sort of because I'm a stubborn old lady, I resist that we think we need to make it more understandable if we stay in our boxes. I don't, if I want to be philosophical, I don't think we're going to get through this new century that we're living in if we don't remember that. I think increasingly we're seeing the need to remember that. And we will not solve some of the great and serious international problems until I see and you see and they, whoever they are, see that our happiness and health and future rely on that similarity. We're not going to get through this next century if we keep saying, I'm right and I gotta have it my way. It's not going to work. We will lose whatever we have. We may blow ourselves up doing it too. Kim, I see in this little thing, I now am about to 121 person shows. I see you have 90 here. We've lost.
I need to make art. As much as anything, it's a necessity for me to be whole. So I probably will always make art because this is something I must do. And I can tell when I don't. I'm not as happy. And if it goes too long without making art, I begin to think I have all kinds of imaginary illnesses. Of course, I don't have any of them. I just need to be in the studio. Working in my studio is joy for me. It's just pure joy. Almost as much as I love making art, I love teaching. So that I gain something. The students feed me with their spirit or their simplicity or their need.
Jan, update us on your perspective of needing to make art as well as your love for teaching.
I don't think I can answer that question without addressing the question of faith. Not only do I think we need to be making things, but I think the act of sharing is an important act of wholeness. If I only hold on to what I have, not only am I harmful to my health, but I'm harmful to other people's health.
You were saying, Dr. Heinicke, about your commitment to making art, communicating, and then teaching.
I think those are languages. I'm not sure I can answer this in a short or concise way, Kim. I've had the good fortune of never feeling that I would starve. I've not confronted the painful reality of hunger that I think as much as the third world has experienced that pain. How fortunate I am, how fortunate all of us are, that we are clothed, we are warm, we even have options about how much clothing and which clothing and whether or not we like it. I've traveled enough around the world to know that tonight there are hungry women in North Africa and South Africa. I've seen them. I've seen the children with the distended stomachs because there isn't anything to put in them. I've seen that kind of separateness between the reality of the world that I'm just describing and the reality of the world that perhaps half of it knows. I've traveled enough to bear on my conscience the consequence of that fact. That's important to me. It's important for me to be sitting here, standing, whatever I'm doing, sitting, standing here, so I can save it. This is not my world, and it's not your world. It's our world. And because I'm a person of faith, I believe it's God's world. And that we need to be faithful in our use of that world. Talk about it. That means I can't waste something intentionally any more than I can hurt you intentionally. I'm sure I do every day in some way, but in other words, our thoughtfulness about our actions, I think, is important. It's sounding a little preachy. I'll try to behave and not be quite so preachy.
I'm not going to ask the impossible. Oh, terrible. All right.
I do like making things, so the process is fun for me. I think the very best moments in the studio are those moments when you have lost yourself in the act of making it. When the piece begins to talk back to you and you listen and hear it. Those are the very best moments.
Those are moments when we don't think about.
Are those still the very best moments?
So those are moments when purpose becomes the object, not the consequence of the object. In other words, maybe a better way of saying that is, although certainly it's helpful and good and necessary for me to sell work if I can, I find the work is better if I don't think, well, this is going to sell better than that one. I think if I look at the marketing possibilities, then this sounds really soupy and sentimental. If my motivation is to see, going to pay me a little more for that one than this one, that for me limits the freedom of expression, because I'm looking at the price tag. Just as if I look at my watch and say, well, I can do this in 10 minutes. And that one takes me 2 minutes. I'll do the quick one. That kind of purposefulness for me reduces the competency of the work. I have no test to say whether or not that's true for others. That's just my opinion.
A final clip is advice.
Believe in yourself. And if this is something you love to do, that's what's really important. Students are flocking into the graphic design area because they feel that they can get a job there, not is this something they have any passion about. I think it is the loving to do it, the passion about it, that sustains you through the tough times. I think without that, all you have is a job. And in today's work world, a job is not going to sustain you through the ups and downs of employment. It's the passion that will. I try to encourage women and girls to think about the necessity to encourage women in the arts. And there is a kind of commitment that is necessary in art, as there is in every profession. I think those of us who are older women have an obligation to encourage that commitment.
What advice would you give us today?
I think I haven't prepared an answer for you, but I think the important thing is a commodity that we don't talk about very much, and that is truth. I think we need to be true to ourselves, true to the person that we think God has made us. And since I can't avoid saying that, I will say that it is important for me to be faithful to a core value. I believe there is an omnipotent God, and I believe that I must be faithful to what I understand that God to be like. I do not think that God is evil or punitive or mean-spirited, wiser beyond any comprehension. I do believe that in ways that we cannot fathom. Let me put the conclusion to it in this way. Often I wonder, what am I supposed to be doing? My goodness gracious, I'm so old, I should be dead. Or I think something like, huh, God, what do you want me to do now? I can't, I think one of the things I've learned is to be patient and to listen. I think, particularly in the Western world, we are inclined to think, get busy, get something done, and get a result from what we do. And the longer I live, the more I learned that I better be patient and listen more and talk less.
And I'm going to invite you to talk about the 4 paintings that you have in this site.
Please.
Tell us about this piece of artwork.
The part of that is a little experiment part. That's on a paper that has texture to it. And the texture was just wonderful. This is the kind of stuff that made you want to go, touch it, see what it feels like. So I'm resonating to the material that I'm working here and paying less attention to color, than the nuances of the surface, which just caught my attention and made it my attention. The statement is really a sort of saying to you, the viewer, oh, don't you want to come up here and touch this stuff? Because it is that way, you, and that's all right. So that's what it's about.
Did you just say it's all right to touch it?
Yes.
They would haul you off in the Louvre.
It is, I suppose I have a luxury of saying that because I'm pretty sure that not going to be a million people walking through a gallery touching it, because then we have some inevitable damage. But what I like about this is the surface quality. That goes back to what I said about my childhood experiences. One of the things I learned driving around in the car with my mother was to look. If you're a little kid and you're in the back of the car and mother has a long visit and I'm getting kind of itchy, you can look a little harder, look a little longer, because there's more to see. Let's look at the next one. This is something I saw in, I was going to say South Pacific, in Florida, where there was a very old tree, old enough that the roots had drawn, this root goes out, that root, and this goes out, this root, and back here there's a great, big, huge tree in which the roots are wonderfully complicated, intricate kind of thing to see. And because it was a banyan tree, the roots were more visible, as they are here and here. So I'm in a way trying to say to you, in effect, hey, come look. Did you see what's here? Woohoo! Look at that. Look at this. Oh, look at that. Oh, wowie, wow. So I'm just enthused over the intricacy of those cavities. I've been in the South and in the West and out of the country probably more times than I can count. Maybe I better not even try. This is a report about what I see in cornfields and the patterns of them. And the Elephant Motel is a motel in this. Oh, wait, see, so that's not right.
Is it Tanzania?
Mm-hmm. And this is a place where tourists stay. But because I had been there several times, I came back and it was dusk. And it was, again, the intricacy of these forms caught my attention. And of course, you all know what that is. Where have you seen that kind of landscape? Well, if we just open the door here and we walk out in the daytime, we're going to see those corn stalks and that pattern here in Iowa. Wonderful pattern. Wonderful. So there is so much in so little, that's what's engaging about it.
You just treated us with a very special moment when you were silent and you were just in wonder.
Mm-hmm. So much to see.
In that moment, it felt like we were being drawn to look with you. Mm-hmm. And I think you succeeded in helping me to see a little bit more.
that's exactly what I hope happens. I think, well, that's going to sound really preachy. We don't take enough time to look. Here we are in the Midwest, and it's the end of a season, or almost the end. This is what we'll see. Look at the pattern. Look at the change of color. Look at that marvelously intricate sight. That's miraculous. There, you saw a miracle. You did just hang out there on your screen.
And that is Dr. Hart Heinicke, Janet Hart Heinicke, in a very small segment.
I should explain why I'm Janet Hart Heinicke, because I don't have any brothers or sisters, and I'm the only child of an elderly marriage. My father was in his 40s when I was born, so today that would be incredible, wouldn't it? I thought, as I came to the point in the humor, that I wanted to find a way to honor my parents. And I thought, well, I could remember my maiden name, which was Hart. So I'm Janet Hart Heinicke now because I want to sound uppity and special, anything that way. But that's the way I can remember and, in effect, say thank you. Thank you to good parents.
And with that, I thank you, my dear friend, for having this conversation with Lucien and myself and with our artistic community, our global community. And so I'm going to let my brother share what he wants to share.
So as I learned about you, Dr. Heinicke, as I just listened to Kimlin describe fervently what you mean to her, this song popped up, and it is Lizzie Hale. She's usually a metal rock singer. She's absolutely powerful, and she's singing with a Mongolian metal band who specializes in throat singing and pentatonic whistling, who heard about Lizzie Hale and invited her to collaborate with them in the English segment. So Lizzie got to write the English segment. It's the Song of Women, honoring women around the world.
Wow. Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
I'm your lover, I'm your mother, I'm your sister, I'm your daughter. When kings fall to
I have one more piece to share with you. And this is absolutely the direct response to listening to you, Dr. Heinicke. And this is what triggered my response that I held until now. How old am I? Gaze into her eyes, framed with lines etched from numerous belly laughs, furrows forged over years of enduring onerous burdens. She gazes past the horizon to a jitterbug with gentlemen in top hats and patent shoes, twirling her frilly dress, hands gloved daintily, brushing the arm of another love-struck beau. Stabbing pain teleports her back to the prison of her once lithe body, adorned with swing, worshipped with lusty caresses, sordid kisses. She doubles over, yielding to cruel pain. She summons her family, shuffling reverently into the minuscule cathedral of her room, distracted by the canopy of machines chirping, 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 like sentinels with robotic metronome. Let me go, please, she implores once again. Tear-stained faces struggle to release, tension broken by a question from an innocent. How old are you, Granny? How old am I? Her frail voice stammers, then she drifts into contemplation. A smile ignites on her weary face. Inclining her head, she declares, I am as old as my last memory.
Is that your point?
Thank you, Dr. Heinicke.
Thank you. This has been a feast of togetherness. It's not my show. It's our show, celebrating the time we live in and hoping for a time ahead. It
And
belongs
now my part. You
Pardon?
think you could get away with without me, huh? Ha 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 ha.
She's been waiting patiently.
Yeah, whatever. So, Dr. Heinicke, this is one of my paper batiks.
Mhm.
I painted this in Mount Pleasant, Iowa, when I was going through a really rough time. I was a mother with young children, and honestly, things weren't going that well in my life. And I was full of worry and fretting. And I remembered you saying, pay attention to the small things. Here I was holding the hand of my son, who I knew he was not diagnosed with autism at that time, but I knew something was not quite right. He hardly spoke, except while we were walking on that brisk fall day, he started picking up leaves with his small hand. And if you notice right down here, that's a small hand. He picked up all sorts of leaves, shapes, heart shapes, wavy shapes. When I went home, he had forgotten about the leaves that we had picked up and I had carried for him. And I ended up putting it into this painting. For that moment, when I was painting, I forgot everything except my son's small hands and those beautiful leaves. So this is the gift that you have given me. You invited me to pass through the halls, galleries of memories, scene by scene, seasons of change, winter, spring, summer, autumn, leaves of a book turning. See the little child within, in you, in me. Let us not trample but treasure this blue-green world, rainforest, ocean, savanna, desert. Hold my hand. Let's play. Let's care for this Eden together. Dr. Heinicke, Jan, my brother said to me, the way you talk about this woman, it's as though she's your mother. So I want to thank you for mothering me through these years. All the conversations we have shared have enriched my life. We are lovable. We are capable. We are valuable. With these eyes, we are able to see if we open them wide. With these hands, we are able to care and make things to share. And with this heart, we can feel and connect even across miles of space, of cornfields, of deserts. And for this precious time, the ground and space between each of us is holy. And I thank you for that.
Wow.
This is why I insisted that we do a take two. I trust that the space that we shared here would be inspiring and shared with all of our global creatives as we have been moved.
Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
All over, it could grow.
Yes.
We could sort of go, and it grow all over.
And so we look forward to bringing back the responses from all around the world back to you.
So this is a call and response show. Between the Lines is a call and response show where we have our show delicious artists, Dr. Janet Hart Heinicke joined us today. Please create your videos, your poems, your images, and post it on Club Mermaid. And I promise you that I will, with every comment and every idea shared, I will share it back with Dr. Hart Heinicke so that she can be thrilled by your imaginations.
Think what you're saying, Kim, because what you're talking about is not for me. It's for us to give to others, to give to others, to give to others, to others, all over. Wouldn't it be wonderful? Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's look together. Let's play together. Let's notice together.
Let's do that.